As cold and flu season approaches, and with respiratory infections like whooping cough and new COVID variants circulating, many of us are seeking ways on how to best protect ourselves and our loved ones. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Colleen Hartwick, ND, to discuss ways we can strengthen our immune systems, reduce the risk of infection, and help our families stay healthy during this challenging season. This conversation is part of an ongoing series sponsored by New Roots Herbal. Welcome back to the show, Colleen.
Thank you for having me back. I'm glad to be here.
So I don't know about you, but I feel like I have a target on my back. Everybody around me is getting sick. So as we are not just preparing, but really in the thick of it, I think, for a cold and flu season, what are the most important steps we can take to sort of strengthen our immune system to prepare for these attacks, I guess, by viruses?
Yeah, absolutely. And I myself had my first bout of influenza over the weekend. It was pretty
Oh
short-lived
no.
because I do a lot of the things right, but it is that time of year. So just starting with some of the basics for supporting the immune system. So these are things like making sure you get enough rest. That looks like somewhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. Doing your best to keep the stress level low, because we know when stress is chronically elevated, it can suppress the immune system and make us more susceptible to, the acute infections that are coming about this time of year. Getting some sort of movement on a regular basis. So whether that's going for a walk, for me, it's rock climbing, swimming, dancing. We know people who are regularly active tend to be better protected in the cold and flu seasons. And then, of course, diet plays a huge role. We are what we eat. Hippocrates was right. So making sure diet is rich in brightly colored fruits and vegetables. You're getting lots of protein because a lot of the cells of your immune system are made of protein. So making sure you're getting enough of that nutrient in your diet. And then considering, if you like them, fermented foods for all of those probiotics. We know people that have a healthier gut microbiome are also better protected against various different viral infections, cold, flu, and the like.
I have to say, of all the things that I have learned doing these interviews, thanks to New Roots Herbal, is how important the microbiome is. It is something that is now hammered into my head. We've talked about it so often, but I really hope people are paying attention to this because it is crucial.
Yeah, not just for immune health. You go and do any sort of deep dive into the scientific literature. Gut microbiome plays a role in mood, in immune health, in cardiovascular disease. It's so important to feed that gut what it needs.
Well, let's talk about the biggest little germ carriers out there, the kids who tend to bring home plenty of germs from school. How can we reduce the chances of illness spreading within our families, especially when the kids do come home with a sniffle?
Yeah, bless our children. They're back to school. They're in more enclosed state situations. I mean, we are as adults as well, less time outdoors, and just more of an opportunity to spread infections. Because unlike adults who have well-established immune systems, we've had decades of practice building immunity to various different pathogens. For kids, it's sometimes their first exposure, so they're going to be more likely to get sick with this year's cold virus or flu virus or variant of COVID. So I think some of the basics in terms of hygiene are really important. Hand washing, making sure surfaces are clean, even something as simple and straightforward as, teaching the little ones and reminding ourselves as adults to cough or sneeze into your elbow, not in your hand, because a lot of these viruses are spread through respiratory droplets. So if I cough or sneeze in my hand and I go to touch you, this is the likelihood that I might spread what I have to you. So those are some sort of basic household practices that you can get into to play to help minimize spread. And of course, making sure, similar to your first question, that the little ones are getting enough rest, that they are staying well hydrated, they're getting some movement in, making sure their diet is nice and diverse in terms of lots of different plants, brightly colored fruits and vegetables, to help them better fend off any cold or flu virus they get exposed to, whether they're at daycare or school and the like.
What about the adults who are taking care of them? There's options, obviously, vaccinations, probiotics, supplements. Can you break down what you think are the most effective approaches for protecting ourselves?
Yeah, and so is this once you've been exposed or after you've already been exposed?
Well, let's say both, really.
Okay, so once you're starting to get a little feverish, a little bit of a tickle in the throat, maybe a little bit of muscle pain because maybe we're dealing with flu versus cold. Some of my favorites are herbs, and my top favorite herbs for viral infections are herbs like elderberry, which we talked a lot about during COVID, still relevant and helpful for not just COVID virus, but a whole variety of different viruses. Another herb called yarrow is actually a fave of mine. It's antiviral. And what yarrow also helps to do is help us to actually spike a bit of a fever. And fever is really important for one, creating an environment that's like not particularly hospitable to the growth of viruses and bacteria. Fever also helps to stimulate our immune system to create lots more white blood cells to help us fend off against infection. Echinacea has been one that's kind of been tried and true in terms of increasing white blood cell count, and again, making for a more robust immune army to again fight off against offending agents, viruses, and bacteria. And then there's some micronutrients as well, really important for both prevention, so decreasing the likelihood that we get sick initially, but can also be used if we do get sick. So these are nutrients like zinc, really important for the immune system. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, also lots of good research around it helping to decrease the intensity and the duration of things like colds and flu. And of course, the ever important vitamin D, which many of us, especially here, I live on Vancouver Island, so we are now in the gray, rainy months. So the vitamin D synthesis is less than it was a month ago when we were still in 25-degree and sunny weather. So making sure you're getting enough vitamin D, both for prevention, but even through the course of an infection, really important.
So nobody likes to be down for long, kids and adults. Is there anything we can do to help speed our recovery along? I know you've mentioned a lot of things once the illness hits, but is there anything else we can do to sort of hurry this virus out the door?
Yeah. So again, some of the nutrients that I mentioned just recently. So getting some extra vitamin D, zinc, vitamin C can help to speed up recovery time. Again, some of those herbs that I mentioned, like elderberry, English ivy is also really nice. It comes oftentimes as like a cough syrup. Various different medicinal mushrooms that I think we might have talked about,
We did, yes, yes.
many months ago, many moons ago, like reishi, turkey tail, cordyceps can have antiviral effects, and with that help to speed up recovery. And then listening to the body. Oftentimes when we're sick, we feel fatigued. So trying to listen to that, taking naps, getting enough rest for both colds, but especially for flus where we could spike a high fever, maintaining adequate hydration can really help speed up recovery. And one of my favorite things to, stay hydrated, but also support the immune system and again, help with a quicker turnaround time from illness to getting back to work or to school. Is bone broth. Bone broth super rich in glutamine, which is actually an energy source. It's a fuel source for our immune cells, for our lymphocytes, the type of immune cells that help us to fight off against, fend off viruses and bacteria.
What about keeping people comfortable? Like, if they have a cough, should they be sitting up? What kind of things do you recommend for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So more on the symptom management side of the spectrum, which is also really important. So if we've got a cough, things like actually, dark chocolate is antitussive, so it can have a bit of a cough suppressing effect. So that's something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I'll sometimes recommend to patients, not buying sort of the ultra sweet chocolate bar from the grocery store, but making like a homemade cacao from scratch to help suppress cough. We could look at steam inhalations using essential oils like eucalyptus oil that can help to really break up a cough. If there's sore throat going on, then things like honey, especially Manuka honey, which has some antibacterial, antiviral properties that can be nice and soothing for our dry, irritated throat. Lozenges like slippery elm lozenges can also be really nice to that effect too. If we're dealing with maybe a little bit of a deeper cough with like lots of mucus, phlegm that's maybe difficult to cough up, there's an antioxidant nutrient called N-acetylcysteine that can be great for that purpose. It's classified as a mucolytic, so it helps to break up mucus, make it easier to cough out that phlegm and give us a little bit of relief.
So Getting through the season obviously is important, but we could probably be doing a lot to sort of think more longer term. So we're not repeating this every year and trying to, beat it back, maybe just getting healthy in general. So any long-term tips for immunity and keeping ourselves resilient?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this comes up every year. I typically do a conversation like this in some capacity or the other, because sometimes we kind of forget what we did last season because, it's been 4 or 5 months since the last cold and flu season. So always good to have a refresher and maybe just some take-home top strategies for supporting the immune system. So kind of going back to where we started is looking at sort of the overall architecture of your lifestyle. Are you getting enough rest? Are you incorporating movement? Where is your level of stress? Again, we know chronic stress can suppress the immune system and make us more susceptible to colds and flus. Are you getting enough key nutrients to help support the immune system? And some really important ones there are, again, vitamin D, which when you can get in supplement form, you can also get from foods like mushrooms or cod liver oil, rich in vitamin D, getting enough vitamin C, another mineral called selenium, which is really rich in Brazil nuts. That also can be really helpful for bolstering up a good immune system, help to keep us protected from various different colds and flu viruses. Again, the fermented foods, the ever important gut microbiome, keeping that well fed with fiber and fermented foods and a diversity of different plants really helps to support healthy gut microbiome. So those are some of the key pillars, I would say, to increasing the likelihood of making it through cold and flu season with very few sniffles and very few fevers.
I'm sure listeners are probably going, what did she say? So I want to let everybody know that there's going to be a blog post about this on whatshesaidtalk.com, where you can go and read all of this. It will link out to some of the supplements that Colleen mentioned. And of course, if you're looking for New Roots Herbal products, head over to newrootsherbal.com to find a natural health food store near you. And Colleen, I will see you again soon.
Sounds good. And hopefully everyone can figure out what I said.